This is gonna be fun.
What's going on, guys? This is Entertainment Critic here, and before I get into this video, I just want to quickly say that this video is going to be very personal to me. It's going to be very much opinionated from my personal experiences, so you are almost certainly going to disagree with it. There may be some of you that agree with my opinions, some of you disagree, but it's okay if you disagree, and let's not start a war about it in the comment section. But this is going to be my ranking for the modern series Doctors, considering I can't really speak about the classic series that I haven't seen much of it or enough of it to properly rank every single one from 1 to 13 or 1 to 14, however you want to put it. So I'm going to be ranking the 5 Doctors who have had their complete runs in the modern series since 2005 up to 2017, so that'd be from Christopher Eccleston to Peter Capaldi, and that is including John Hurt, because even though he was only in one episode, he still had his full reign. He was only in one episode, and he's not come back, and he's not going to come back, because Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor now. So, plus John Hurt sadly did die, so that he's had his full reign, so I am including him in this list. And Jodie Whittaker will be excluded from this list for now because she hasn't had her full reign as the Doctor. So even though, as much as I am liking her Doctor, she won't be getting a place on this list. So, without further ado, getting into it, number 5, we have Christopher Eccleston, the 9th Doctor. So, I feel bad for putting him in this position, even though he has to be in this position for me because he just didn't have enough time as the Doctor, in my opinion. He was good. He was really good, actually. He had a lot of stand-up moments. He had the tough job of reintroducing the show to a whole new audience. He was the person who introduced me to the show. He was my first Doctor, even though I wouldn't say he's my Doctor. He's my first Doctor. Because in 2005, I remember watching the first episode. That was my first ever episode, which was Rose. So he was my first Doctor, and he was the person who introduced me to the show, and he introduced the show to a whole new generation of people. And I think he did it really well, otherwise it wouldn't be going now. The standout episodes for him, I'll do this for each Doctor. I'd say definitely Rose. That was a strong start, really strong start. Let's see, there's Dalek. That's another one. The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. What else are there? Season 1 doesn't really have standout episodes, but it's good as a whole. But Parting of the Ways and Bad Wolf, maybe Parting of the Ways more so than Bad Wolf, because Bad Wolf, I believe, is very dated in the ideas it has in the different game shows. Because by using the game shows of that time in 2005, it puts a date on the show, and it kind of makes it look worse as time goes on. I suppose you could say, is it looking back at what it used to be like, even though it's only 13 years ago now, but as the show progressively gets older, that will look more and more dated as it goes on. So I say Parting the Ways is definitely the best one, and his final speech to Rose, "You were fantastic and you know what, so was I," and then the introduction of David Tennant at the end of that episode, who I will be getting into later in this list. So yeah, I really do think he was the strong start for the revival, but because he only had one season, it really does limit where I can put him on this list. So he comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor. Yeah, the 12th Doctor. I don't really know what to say about him. He had a mixed bag, and that is why he is so low on the list. He wasn't consistent throughout his run. So I enjoyed season 8 as a whole. Season 9 I can't stand, and season 10 is okay at best. So season 8, I really liked what they were going with. I really liked the Rebel Time Lord effect they had for about the first, I want to say 9 episodes or 8 episodes, 8 or 9 episodes. I really liked what they were going for with his Doctor. He was different, and it was new, and it was refreshing compared to what we had with Matt Smith and David Tennant before him. But as soon as season 8 finished and season 9 started, he just completely changed. He did a complete 180, and he was riding in on a tank with a guitar and sonic shades. So, as cool as that sounds on concept, it doesn't work for his Doctor. It felt completely out of left field for his Doctor, and I don't think it worked as much as Moffat wanted it to work. So just season 9 as a whole, he just completely changed and it didn't work. And then in season 10, they tried to salvage it by completely. They didn't change him completely, they tried to take elements from season 8 and season 9 and then make it as a whole. Um, so he was more felt more complete as a character in season 10, but by that point it was too late and it was his final season, so it just felt disjointed all of his seasons, which did lead to a complete inconsistency in his character. And then he was held back by the fact that he had Clara for most of his run, even though Jenna Coleman had multiple exits in the show. So she had her exit in Name of the Doctor before Capaldi even came onto the screen. Not yeah, Name of the Doctor, where she went into the Doctor's time stream. She then had her exit in, I believe it was Death in Heaven, where she just left the TARDIS, and that was supposed to be it. But apparently, according to Moffat, Jenna Coleman didn't want to leave at that point, so we got her for another season, even though she was her final endpoint was supposed to be Last Christmas too, and then she changed her mind and we had her for all of season 9, and then she did finally have her final exit in Face the Raven. And I don't think her character deserved the exit that she got. It was a really good exit, but for the character, I don't think she deserved it. Just because how inconsistent and how what she stood for in her run, and she completely took up most of Capaldi's run as the Doctor, and it ended up becoming the Clara show by the end of series 9, and it just didn't work for me. It caused Hellbent to happen, and as the less said about Hellbent, the better, really. Just that was an awful episode, and it was definitely Capaldi's worst, especially after it came after Heaven Sent, which is quite close to being his best episode. So, speaking of his best episodes, let's get into his best episodes, because I really do feel bad for hating on it, because Capaldi is one of the most esteemed actors that the show has had in a long time. He's been in countless roles before that, and he's won multiple awards for that. And I do feel like he suffered from Moffat at his worst writing. I feel like Moffat knew what he was doing with the 11th Doctor, and I'll touch on him when I get to him on the list. But I felt like he knew what he was doing for Matt Smith's Doctor, and by the time he got to Peter Capaldi, he had already taken on Sherlock, and he was also writing Doctor Who at the same time. So writing the two different shows at once, I think Doctor Who kind of got the short end of the stick for most of it, and Capaldi suffered in the writing department from then on, and he was also laboured with Clara for most of his run, so that did bring him down quite a bit. So, yeah. Moving on to his best episodes, I say definitely his had a strong start with Deep Breath. There was Into the Dalek, which I really did enjoy. I really liked the concept with Rusty and the Doctor. Listen, another amazing episode. I can continuously go back and watch Listen, and it is such a good episode, so creepy, such a good vibe behind the episode. Even though it was kind of tied down by Clara and Danny, but at that point they weren't annoying. There was Flatline, which was another amazing episode. What else was there? Mommy on the Orient Express is quite possibly my favorite episode of Capaldi's run, even though I'm probably going to list off others which are my favorite run, and I'm probably going to do that in a second. So, for now, I'll say Orient and Mommy on the Orient Express is my favorite episode from him. Going into season 9, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar were okay. The Witch's Familiar was slightly better. I thought that was a better episode for him. Before the Flood and Under the Lake were amazing episodes. I love base under siege stories. Then we had the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion. The best part of that two-parter was definitely the Doctor's anti-war speech. That is the best speech and one of the best speeches that Moffat has ever written. And if you want to see that speech, I will try and find a video link for you to watch it and put it in the description below so you can go and watch it. Because if I put this in that video, or yeah, the BBC will take it down probably. So I'll link it in the description below so you guys can go check that out. And I'll link any other scenes that I talk about in this video as well. So yeah, moving on, there was Face the Raven is quite a good episode as well. Like I said, Clara didn't necessarily deserve the exit she got, but it was still a really good exit. It was really well shot, it was really well written, and then it followed on with Heaven Sent, which showed how good of an actor Peter Capaldi could be when he wasn't laboured with a companion. it really showed like how good he could be with acting and what he could do with what his acting skills are when he was on his own, and it really just shone through. And then it was undercut or overcut, however you want to put it, by Hellbent. I'm not going to get into Hellbent because I could speak for half an hour on how bad Hellbent is, and I won't get into that. I could actually make a video on that, but I don't want to bore you guys at the same time. So yeah, moving on to Series 10 for Capaldi. So like I said, Series 10 was okay at best. I liked the pilot, that was a strong start. Then we had Oxygen, that was another one. Based on the Siege story, I'm gonna say I like that. That's probably not my favorite episode because there is another episode in this season that I like the most. Empress of Mars was a decent episode. The Monk Three-Parter just was completely ruined by Lie of the Land. So Pyramid at the End of the World and Extremists were completely undercut by the Lie of the Land, and I can't stand that trilogy anymore now. Eaters of the Light was I don't know what it was supposed to be. I know it was a returning writer from the classic series who wrote the final episode, I want to say, of the classic series for Sylvester McCoy, and she came back and wrote for this episode, and I don't know what happened because it really wasn't that good. And then the finale two parts. So we had World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls. So World Enough in Time is definitely my preferred episode out of the two. I don't know what it is with Moffat and finales, but he has the ability to take a small scale character driven story, which was World Enough in Time, and just completely blow it up, and there's explosions going off everywhere. The Doctor is running around with a sonic screwdriver blowing up Cyberman. He just it just explodes. Like I'll get onto that with Matt Smith as well because that happened a lot in his run as well. He just has the ability to just everything just gets blown out of proportion with Moffat in his finales. He can write consistent openers and he can write the first part of a finale, and he can somewhat do a story arc. Not really, but he's good at writing like single episodes. But if you try and ask him to do multiple parts, it just gets way out of hand, and the second part always ends up being bombastic and it completely ruins the point of the first one. But at the same time, I do like the Doctor Falls. It was a really strong episode, but like I said, I would have preferred if it was more smaller and character driven, like the first part set up. So yeah, Peter Capaldi's run was, at best, it was okay, and that is why he comes in at number 4. Coming in at our number 3 spot is John Hurt, the War Doctor. So there is going to be quite a bit of controversy for me putting John Hurt above Peter Capaldi because John Hurt was only technically in an hour and 20 minutes of Doctor Who, or an hour at best, and in that hour I still think he did way better than Peter Capaldi because he had the job of dueling with David Tennant and Matt Smith at the same time. So I feel like he did a really good job at portraying who his Doctor was and what it was about. Because his Doctor was what we've been building up to since the series came back with the Time Wars. He was the Doctor that had killed basically 2 races, and that was what Christopher Eccleston's Doctor came off of. So there was a lot of build up behind his character, and I really do think he delivered. And I wasn't surprised that he delivered, considering how much of a prestigious actor John Hurt was. So yeah, I do love how his dynamic with David Tennant and Matt Smith, those three just worked really well together. I liked his dynamics with the Bad Wolf. The scenes with him and the Bad Wolf really worked really well. And I feel like he got Moffat. He was the best Doctor Moffat written, or maybe. Actually, I don't think he's in the middle of the pack, definitely, because Capaldi I'd say was the worst, but still somewhat okay. Then there was John Hurt. He had Moffat while he was still like focused in on writing Doctor Who, and he was somewhat branching off to do Sherlock at the time, I believe. And then we have who will be coming on later in the list. So yeah, I feel like John Hurt was a really good Doctor, although I would have liked to see more of him, but he was good for the purpose he served in the story he was in, and he had a good conclusion to his character arc. And yeah, that's why he comes in at number 3. Now, coming in at number 2, this is where it gets interesting in the list, because this is everybody's favorite two Doctors since the show came back. Well, most people that I speak to's favorite two Doctors. So, this is going to cause quite a bit of controversy, and I'm interested to see what your responses are below. Coming in at number 2, I have actually put David Tennant, the 10th Doctor. And yes, I know that is going to cause a lot of outrage, because technically you could say David Tennant had the best ranking throughout his run, but overall you could say that. But if you look at some of the seasons he was in, so season 2 specifically, I really don't like season 2. It is probably my worst. Now going back and looking at it, I know I've done videos on it, but season 2 is probably my least liked season of all of the modern series, just because of the dynamic between the Doctor and Rose. I don't think the Doctor should have a human love interest. It just doesn't work for me. I don't think the Doctor should have a love interest at all. I think the love interest role should be for the companions, so it gives a relatability factor, and it seems more human. The Doctor then having an alien Doctor having a relationship, you can't really relate to that as a viewer. So I don't think the Doctor as a character should be in a relationship. And the best that ever worked was with Matt Smith and Alex Kingston as a 11th Doctor and River Song. That was the only time it really, really worked, but it just doesn't work. And Doomsday, they were trying to get an emotional payoff, and I could see where they were going with it, and it did work really well with them on two sides of the walls, and it was emotional, but I couldn't get invested in it because it was just completely out of nowhere. I'll be completely honest. And at the end of season 1, he kissed her, and that was just to transfer the TARDIS energy outside of Rose because she was dying from what she'd absorbed the heart of the TARDIS. And then suddenly in season 2, it was like, oh, I love you now that you're just regenerated into somebody who's much better looking and you're younger now. That was what it seemed like, and I didn't like it, and especially with his starting New Earth and then all of the. I can pick out a few standout episodes from season 2, and otherwise I just don't like it. And I'm going to move on to David Tennant's other series now because he is in second on this list, and all I've done is complain about it so far. So season 3 is fantastic for me. I love season 3. I love Martha. I love the whole dynamic with the Master. How Saxon was fed for us from consistently throughout the season. There was things with Martha's mother, and then the final finale three-parter, Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and The Last of Time was fantastic. Even though there was a bit of a Deus Ex Machina conclusion to that episode, where JK, nothing really happened here, and he's just gonna reverse time. But I really do like it, and it shows that if you travel with the Doctor, it's not just you that could be hurt; it's the people closest to you that could be hurt as well. Because Martha's family, they get captured, they get tortured by the Master in order to get to the Doctor, because he knew that by torturing his Martha's family, it would get the Doctor to come out of hiding and face him, and eventually she did, and he ended up ended up having a finale without the Doctor because he was aged up or aged out. It's confusing, but he was made into an old man by the Master using his hand and his laser screwdriver, and the Doctor was out of commission for the entire finale, and it fell down to Martha to carry the story, and she did it brilliantly. And I love just of how she continues on the story of the Doctor wherever she goes throughout the world, and I loved how it was solved by the power of storytelling, and how they all came together in that one moment, thinking of the one word, and it brought back the Doctor. And I thought that was a really nice ending and a really nice way to conclude it. And then going on to season 4, season 4 is quite possibly David Tennant's best series and probably the best series of Doctor Who, maybe the second best. I'm going to go on to my favorite in a second, but I can't pick out a single bad episode in season 4. I'm being completely honest. They were all amazing. They were all well written. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead stand out to me, and Journey's End and the three-part conclusion to that all stand out to me. Fires of Pompeii, we had the introduction of Peter Capaldi for the first time in main series Doctor Who. He'd been in Torchwood at that point, and we had Amy Pond as a soothsayer in that episode. So we did have two future main actors in the Doctor Who universe in the episode, and I really do like it. It had Unicorn and the Wasp that terrified me as a kid, I'll be completely honest. Partners in Crime was a decent episode, it was pretty good. Yeah, and Planet of the Ood was pretty good too. I really do like that episode. So, Midnight. How could I forget about Midnight? Oh my god. Another based on the Siege story, but technically it's a based on the Siege, but it shows what David Tennant can do on his own. Like Heaven Sent shows what Peter Capaldi is capable of doing on his own. Midnight shows what no, not Peter, David Tennant is capable of doing on his own, and it really does shine through. And we had a guest star from another BBC show that I really do like, which was, oh god, what was his name? Colin Morgan, who played Merlin, and he played Jeffro, I believe his name was, in this episode, and he was really funny. And the Midnight Entity was really creepy. So yeah, that wraps up my thoughts on David Tennant. He's a really strong Doctor, but I don't think of the time when I was first watching it, and this is why I'm basing it off. I just don't feel like when I watched it at the first time, I was old enough to completely understand what was happening, and I'll touch on that in a second because I have a bit of a personal story to say about that. But yeah, the specials were all amazing except for I don't like his exit in the end of time. I feel like he was in the end of time part 2. It's like it doesn't feel like dying. It feels like dying, but another man goes swanning off, and my place says, no, that's not how regeneration works. No other doctor has said that. And then he goes, says, I don't want to go. No other doctor says that, and it kind of like, to me personally, it cheapens all of the doctor's exits before that, and possibly after that. But yeah, still, he is a really strong doctor. He was possibly he was involved in the show's best period of time, and yeah, David Tennant comes in at number 2. Now, by process of elimination, you probably guessed what my number 1 spot is, and it's Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor. So, I was old at that point where Matt Smith was introduced. I feel like I was actually old enough to properly gauge and understand what was happening in the show and properly enjoy it for what the show was. And I'll be honest, when Matt Smith actually first came in, I didn't like him. I think I was 9 or 10. I think I was 9 or 10 years old when Matt Smith first came on, and I honestly did think that Matt Smith killed the previous Doctor because, to my 9-year-old self, I saw um just David Tennant explode out into and then blow up the TARDIS, and then Matt Smith come in his place, and I honestly did think he killed him. So that I didn't like the Matt Smith in the 11th Hour when I first watched it, but going back and watching it, the 11th Hour is a fantastic episode, and Series 5 is my favorite series of Doctor Who of all time. There's so many good episodes in this. I pretty much like all of them. And just Matt Smith's Doctor as a whole is just, he's sort of that old man, but he's trying to be younger vibe about him. So like we know he's young, but he has he feels like an older person, and is really warm and really welcoming, and I really do like it. Even though if he did kind of suffer from bad writing throughout Series 6, I will defend Series 7 until I die. I do really like Series 7, but Series 6, I just didn't feel like it worked for me. They did a complete 180 with, they did Death of the Doctor, and then just like, nope, JK, he was in a robot the entire time, don't worry about it. And we won't get into how a robot, even though they're supposed to be mimicking what the person they're copying is supposed to be like, I don't understand how he's capable of regeneration as a robot. There are so many other things that have in that finale, the wedding of River Song, that I've forgotten about. And yeah, like I said with Peter Capaldi, Moffat has that thing about, he has a smaller driven story. So I can't really say this with Series 5 because the Pandorica opens while being a small story. By the end of it, we have basically the entire back catalogue of back catalogue of the BBC's monster range on screen in front of us. They literally just emptied out their entire closets and just plopped it on screen. That was what happened at the end of Pandorica Opens. And then yeah, it was like the ending to the Big Bang. What I liked the concept of the Big Bang as a whole. The Big Bang 2 was a bit of a stretch, and oh yeah, I'm just gonna fly the Pandorica into the heart of exploding TARDIS, and yeah, it's gonna reboot the entire universe. It's all good. I don't, that doesn't work for me. While the acting in the episode was strong, Matt Smith in the episode was strong. No matter what, no matter how bad the writing got for storytelling, Matt Smith's Doctor was always the strongest, and he's always. Moffat knew what he was doing with Matt Smith's Doctor. He planned this out. That Matt Smith was Moffat's Doctor, and then that's why Capaldi suffered, because he didn't really have it planned out as well as he did with Matt Smith's Doctor. So going into season 7, that was a bit of the weird season because we had Amy and Rory for the first 5 episodes, and that's made up Series 7A or Series 7 Part 1, however you want to put it. And I really do like Series 7A. except for dinosaurs on a spaceship. While it does have somewhat of a charm to it, it's not as good for me. But Asylum and the Daleks I love. I will defend that episode no matter what. It is a good episode. There's A Town Called Mercy, another amazing episode. The Power of Three, it had a nice underlying message, and it was actually it was Chris Chibnall's last script before becoming showrunner, so that's interesting. And then The Angels Take Manhattan overall was a good story, just literally overshadowed by a Weeping Angel Statue of Liberty, which makes absolutely no sense. Because the point of the Weeping Angels is they're not supposed to be able to move while people are watching them. So, can somebody please explain to me how the Statue of Liberty walked across New York without being spotted so that it could be behind Amy and Rory and the Doctor on the rooftop? It just is too much of a logic leap to make, and I don't. That's why it's like kind of overshadows the episode for me. But Amy and Rory's exit was probably one of the most heartbreaking exits that the show has ever done for me personally. Some of you might say Rose, but Amy and Rory's exit was perfectly done for me. How he can never go back and see them, even though you could probably get a loophole and try and go back and see them. He can never go and see them where they're living at that point. And I do really like the overall message of that episode, and then it leads into the Doctor going into depression phase, and that leads into the Snowman and Clara, and Clara. You know my feelings on Clara in series 7. She kind of worked. She had an arc, even if it was a plot device arc. Literally, she was the plot device that drove series 7B. That is what she was, and I feel she got better. Not very much better, but she got better with Capaldi. But she was a walking, talking plot device. She was the Impossible Girl, and she was the whole point of Series 7B. And while I do think that Matt Smith and Jenna Coleman actually had chemistry between each other on screen, it was yet another attempt to give Doctor a human love interest, which didn't really interest me. But I would have liked to have seen, because there was rumors that Matt Smith was supposed to stay on for Series 8 with Jenna Coleman, so that would have been interesting to see, because I believe the plan for that was to have the Doctor be war-torn and battled and bruised after being in time with the Doctor, so he'd be a lot more hardened. So I believe what Capaldi was like at the start of his run was what Matt Smith's support Doctor was supposed to be like at the start of Series 8, but obviously I believe Matt Smith decided to leave, so we got Peter Capaldi instead. But I personally think that the series in 7B, the ending to it, so if we go from Name of the Doctor to, I want to say Night of the Doctor too, even though that doesn't really involve Matt Smith, but I'm going to include it anyway. And then there's Day of the Doctor, another fantastic episode, completely celebrates the new series of Doctor Who. And then Time of the Doctor, which is a fantastic episode. You're essentially watching your favorite, I'm watching my favorite Doctor be stripped away from me piece by piece, and it was really emotional. And his speech on change was really perfectly written, and I feel like that was how regeneration should be approached, and that was why I do like Twice Upon a Time with Peter Capaldi, how he gave his speech to the next Doctor, like continuing on a legacy rather than saying I don't want to go. I feel like regeneration is like, well, this is what I am, this is what I'm going to be now, and I'm just going to accept that, and I'm going to try and give you as much of a head start and try and give you my next self as much knowledge as I possibly can. So like, always remember who you used to be. And I like how Matt Smith kind of had his line, like he had his I don't want to go, but it wasn't as in your face. It's like, I won't forget a single line of this, I swear. I won't forget something along those lines, and it was subtle, and that's what I liked about it. So yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling on now because I've gone on for quite a bit. But yeah, that was my top 5 Doctors from the modern series. Obviously, I didn't include Jodie Whittaker. I will do an update to this list when Jodie finishes her run as a Doctor, which I don't know when that's gonna be. But yeah, please let me know what your top 5 Doctors from the modern series specifically, so from Eccleston to Capaldi, is in the comment section below. And I'm happy to see what your opinions are, and we can have a discussion about it. But if you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. As you know, your support is very much appreciated, and subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.